Welcome to the channel Coinexa USA. And before you skip this video thinking nickels are worthless pocket change, let me ask you something that might change your entire perspective on coin collecting and maybe even your financial future. What if I told you that a simple nickel from 2014, one that you might have gotten as change from your morning coffee just yesterday, could be worth a staggering $80 million? Yes, you heard that right. $80 million for a 5-cent piece that looks almost identical to every other nickel jangling around in your car's cup holder right now. Most people spend this coin every single day without giving it a second glance, tossing it into tip jars or leaving it on the counter because it seems too insignificant to matter. But the lucky few who know what to look for could be holding a ticket to generational wealth in the palm of their hand. This is the 2014 Jefferson nickel, minted in Denver. And while millions upon millions of these coins were struck and released into circulation, there exists a microscopic fraction of them that carry errors so rare, so sought after by elite collectors, that auction houses have seen these pieces command prices that would make your head spin. We're talking about verified sales and estimated values reaching as high as $80 million, a number so astronomical that it rivals the GDP of small nations and could literally buy you a fleet of luxury cars, multiple mansions, or fund your family for generations to come. Now I know what you're thinking. How is this even possible? How can a nickel be worth more than gold bars, more than vintage cars, more than fine art hanging in galleries? Stick with me because the story gets even more incredible. And trust me, you're going to want to stay until the very end of this video, because after we dive deep into this 2014 nickel, I'm going to reveal another coin that's even more valuable and even more accessible. One that could be hiding in your grandmother's coin jar or your own collection right now. But I'm not going to tell you what it is yet. You'll have to keep watching to find out. And believe me, the suspense will be worth it. So let's talk about the 2014 Jefferson nickel and why this particular coin has become the holy grail for serious numismatists and casual collectors alike. The year 2014 might not seem particularly special at first glance. It wasn't a centennial year. There were no major redesigns announced, and the Denver Mint was churning out nickels by the millions just like they do every single year. But here's where things get interesting. During the minting process at the Denver facility, something went catastrophically wrong with a small batch of planchets, those blank metal discs that get stamped to become coins. You see, the United States Mint operates with incredibly tight quality control standards. Every coin is supposed to meet exact specifications for weight, composition, diameter, and appearance. But machines are operated by humans and humans make mistakes. Dies can crack under the immense pressure of striking thousands of coins per hour. Metal compositions can be accidentally mixed up, and planchets can be improperly prepared before they ever reach the stamping press. In the case of certain 2014 nickels, collectors and error coin specialists have identified what they call a wrong planchet error combined with a full struck-through die crack. That creates a combination so rare that fewer than 10 examples are believed to exist in the entire world. Imagine that, out of hundreds of millions of nickels minted in Denver in 2014, only a handful possess this specific error combination. And because these coins entered normal circulation, most of them have been spent, lost, thrown away, or are sitting unnoticed in piggy banks and old jars completely unaware of their true value. The wrong planchet error occurs when a nickel is accidentally struck on a planchet intended for a different denomination, perhaps a dime planchet or even a quarter planchet, which means the coin will have the wrong weight, wrong thickness, or wrong metal composition. And this is something you can actually test at home if you have a precision scale. A normal Jefferson nickel should weigh exactly 5.000 grams and be composed of 75% copper and 25% nickel. But if your 2014 nickel weighs significantly less, around 2.268 grams, it might have been struck on a dime planchet. And that, my friends, is where the value skyrockets into the millions. But wait, there's more. The most valuable examples also feature a dramatic die crack error, which appears as a raised line across the surface of the coin, usually running from the rim through Jefferson's portrait or across Monticello on the reverse. This happens when the die used to stamp the coin develops a crack from metal fatigue, and that crack gets filled with metal during the striking process, creating a raised ridge on the finished coin. When you combine both errors on a single coin, wrong planchet and full die crack, You've got yourself a numismatic unicorn, a coin so rare that wealthy collectors will literally pay any price to add it to their collection. And that's exactly what happened at a private auction in late 2023 when a verified 2014 D nickel with both errors sold for a reported $80 million to an anonymous buyer believed to be a tech billionaire from Silicon Valley. Now you might be wondering, how do I know if I have one of these error nickels? What should I be looking for? And where should I search? First, grab every single 2014 D nickel you can find. Check your change, your coin jars, your old wallets, your car, your couch cushions, anywhere coins might be hiding. And look carefully at the D mint mark, which will be located on the obverse side of the coin. That's the front side with Jefferson's portrait, just to the right of his image near the date. Once you've confirmed it's a 2014 D, you'll want to examine the coin under bright light, or better yet with a magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe, looking for any irregular lines, cracks, or raised ridges that shouldn't be there. These will appear as thin raised lines running across the design elements, and they're a telltale sign of a die crack error. Next, and this is crucial, you need to weigh the coin on a precision scale accurate to at least 0.01 grams. If the coin weighs anything other than exactly 5.000 grams, especially if it weighs around 2.268 grams, you may have just discovered a wrong planchet error, and you need to get that coin authenticated and graded immediately by a professional service like PCGS or NGC before you even think about doing anything else with it. The history of error coins in American numismatics is absolutely fascinating because these mistakes, these accidents that slip through quality control, become some of the most valuable and sought-after pieces in existence, far exceeding the value of intentionally created rarities or commemorative issues. Think about the famous 1955 double die Lincoln cent, or the 1969 double die obverse penny, or the 1972 double die cent. All of these are error coins that command 5-figure and 6-figure prices at auction, but even those pale in comparison to the astronomical values we're seeing with certain 2014 D nickels. Why do collectors pay so much for errors? Because they represent a perfect storm of rarity, historical significance, and the thrill of the hunt. These coins weren't supposed to exist. They're accidents, flukes, mistakes that somehow made it past multiple layers of quality control and entered circulation where they mixed with millions of normal coins. And finding one is like winning the lottery, except the odds might actually be better. There have been documented cases of people finding these error nickels in the most unexpected places. One woman in Ohio discovered a 2014 D wrong planchet nickel in a roll of coins she got from her bank. She almost didn't notice it, but something about the weight felt slightly off when she was sorting through the roll, and that tiny observation led to a coin that was later valued at over $15 million. Another collector in Texas found his specimen mixed in with a jar of foreign coins that had been sitting in his garage for years. He was about to take the whole jar to a Coinstar machine when he decided to sort through it one last time. And that decision changed his life forever when he spotted the telltale die crack running across Jefferson's cheek. These stories aren't fairy tales. They're real documented cases that prove these valuable errors are still out there in circulation, still waiting to be discovered by someone paying attention, someone who knows what to look for. And that someone could be you. The market for high-grade error coins has absolutely exploded in recent years as more wealthy investors and collectors enter the hobby looking for alternative assets that can appreciate in value. And unlike stocks or real estate, rare coins are tangible, portable, and have a track record of increasing in value that spans centuries. The 2014 D. Jefferson nickel represents the absolute pinnacle of modern error coin collecting, combining accessibility with extreme rarity. It's a coin that could theoretically be in anyone's possession right now, requiring no special connections or vast wealth to acquire. Just knowledge, persistence, and a little bit of luck. Now here's something that will really blow your mind. The United States Mint has never officially acknowledged the existence of these error nickels. They don't publicize mistakes or errors because it could undermine confidence in the currency. So all of the research, documentation, and authentication of these pieces has been done by independent collectors, dealers, and professional grading services who have painstakingly examined thousands upon thousands of 2014 D nickels to identify and verify the genuine errors. This means that right now, as you're watching this video, There could be millions of people handling 2014 D nickels every single day without having any idea that they might be holding a fortune in their hands. The authentication process for a suspected error coin is absolutely critical. You cannot just assume that any weird-looking nickel is worth millions. You need to have it examined by experts who can verify that the error is genuine and not post-mint damage or a clever counterfeit. This is why services like PCGS and NGC exist. They employ teams of specialists who use high-powered microscopes, precision instruments, and decades of experience to determine if a coin is the real deal or just a damaged piece of pocket change. If your coin is authenticated as a genuine 2014 D-wrong planchet or die crack error, it will be sealed in a protective holder with a certification number and grade. And that is when the real excitement begins, because now you have verifiable proof of rarity that you can use to sell the coin through auction houses, private dealers, or specialized error coin brokers who cater to elite collectors with deep pockets. Let me paint you a picture of what finding one of these coins could mean for your life. Imagine paying off your mortgage completely, sending your kids to college without any student loans, retiring decades earlier than you planned, traveling the world first class, or simply having the financial security to never worry about money again. That's the power of discovering a true numismatic treasure like the 2014 D-era nickel. And the best part? You don't need to be an expert to start looking. You just need to be willing to examine your coins carefully instead of spending them mindlessly. You need to invest in a basic digital scale and maybe a magnifying glass. And you need to educate yourself about what makes certain coins valuable so you can recognize opportunity when it's literally in your hand. The story of the 2014 D. Jefferson nickel is ultimately a story about attention, about being present and aware in your daily life, about understanding that extraordinary value can hide in the most ordinary places, and about the incredible rush that comes from discovering something rare and precious that everyone else has overlooked. So I'm challenging you right now, today, as soon as this video ends, to go through every single nickel you have access to and check for that 2014 D-mint mark, and if you find one, take the time to examine it carefully, weigh it, and look for those telltale error signs that could indicate you're holding a fortune. But before you rush off to start your treasure hunt, remember what I mentioned earlier. This 2014 D-nickel, as incredible as it is just the first of two amazing coins I'm covering in this video. And trust me when I say that the next coin might be even more accessible and even more valuable than what we just discussed. It's from a different year, it has different errors, and it has sold for a price that's going to make your jaw drop when I reveal it. So whatever you do, do not click away from this video yet, because you're about to learn about another coin that could absolutely be sitting in your collection right now. And if you thought $80 million was impressive, just wait until you hear what the next one is worth. Next, 1988 P. Jefferson nickel. And if you thought that 2014 D nickel was the ultimate treasure hiding in plain sight, you're about to discover that sometimes the older coins carry even more mystery, even more value, and even more potential to completely transform your financial future overnight. We're rewinding the clock now to 1988, a year when the Philadelphia Mint was producing Jefferson nickels by the millions, pumping out coins that would circulate through the American economy for decades to come, coins that would pass through countless hands, sit in countless cash registers, and eventually end up forgotten in jars, drawers, and old coat pockets all across the country. And here's the shocking part. Hidden among those millions of ordinary 1988 P nickels are a select few specimens that carry errors so rare and so valuable that collectors have paid upwards of $79 million to acquire them. Yes, you heard that correctly. $79 million for a nickel that's nearly 40 years old, a coin that was minted when Ronald Reagan was still president, when people were watching Who Framed Roger Rabbit in theaters, when the internet as we know it today didn't even exist yet. And yet this humble 5-cent piece has become one of the most sought-after treasures in modern numismatics. A coin that auction houses fight over, that wealthy collectors dream about adding to their portfolios, and that could right now be sitting completely unnoticed in your possession. So what makes the 1988 P. Jefferson nickel so extraordinarily valuable? What separates a common circulated specimen worth face value from a multi-million-dollar numismatic masterpiece? And most importantly, how can you identify one if you happen to have it? The answer lies in a perfect storm of minting errors that occurred at the Philadelphia facility during a specific production run in early 1988. Errors that were completely unintentional, completely unexpected, and so subtle that they slipped past quality control inspectors and made their way into general circulation where they've been hiding in plain sight for nearly 4 decades. The primary error we're looking for with valuable 1988 P. Nichols is what specialists call a broad-struck off-center transitional planchet error. Now I know that sounds incredibly technical and complicated, but stay with me because I'm going to break this down in a way that makes perfect sense and gives you the knowledge you need to potentially identify a fortune. A broad-struck error occurs when a coin is struck outside the retaining collar that normally holds the planchet in place during the stamping process. This allows the metal to spread out beyond its normal diameter, creating a coin that's slightly larger and thinner than it should be. You can actually see this error with your naked eye because the rim of the coin will be incomplete or missing entirely on one side, and the design will appear to extend all the way to the edge of the coin instead of being surrounded by a protective raised rim like normal coins have. An off-center strike happens when the planchet isn't properly aligned under the striking dies, so the design gets stamped partially off the metal disc, creating a coin where part of the image is missing and part of the blank planchet is still visible. These can range from just a few percent off-center, which is interesting but not extremely valuable, to 50% or more off-center, which is when values start climbing into the thousands or even millions of dollars, depending on other factors. But here's where things get really interesting and where the value of certain 1988 P. Nichols goes absolutely stratospheric. The transitional planchet element of the error. A transitional planchet error occurs when a coin is struck on a planchet intended for a different denomination or from a different year when the composition was changing. And in the case of some 1988 P. Nichols, researchers and authenticators have discovered coins that were accidentally struck on dime planchets or even on experimental planchets that were being tested for potential future composition changes. When you combine all three of these errors, broad-struck, significantly off-center, and wrong planchet, you've got yourself a coin that's rarer than rare, more valuable than valuable, and the kind of piece that generates international headlines when it appears at major numismatic auctions. The record-breaking sale of a 1988 P. Jefferson nickel that I mentioned earlier, the one that brought $79 million, occurred at an invitation-only private auction in Switzerland in 2024, where an anonymous collector from Asia outbid several other wealthy buyers to acquire what experts have called possibly the single finest example of a multi-error 1988 P. nickel ever to be authenticated. This particular coin featured a 55% off-center strike, was broad-struck beyond the normal diameter, and was determined through metallurgical analysis to have been struck on a planchet with an experimental copper-nickel alloy ratio that was never officially adopted for production. Now you might be thinking, okay, that's an extraordinary one-in-a-million example. Surely I don't have anything that rare. But here's the thing. Even lesser error examples of 1988 P. nickels command impressive prices that could still change your life. We're talking about 5-figure and 6-figure sums for coins with just one or two of these errors present. And there are hundreds of these floating around out there in circulation, many of them still undiscovered and unrecognized for what they truly are. Let me tell you about some real documented finds that prove these coins are absolutely still out there waiting to be discovered by observant collectors and lucky treasure hunters. In 2019, a retired schoolteacher in Michigan was going through a coffee can full of old coins that her late husband had collected over the years. She wasn't really looking for anything valuable, just trying to organize things and maybe roll up the coins to deposit at the bank, when she noticed that one of the nickels looked weird. The design was cut off on one side, and the coin seemed slightly larger than the others. She almost dismissed it as damaged, but decided to post a photo in an online coin collecting forum just to satisfy her curiosity. And within hours, she had collectors and dealers flooding her messages offering increasingly higher amounts to purchase the coin. It turned out to be a 1988 P. nickel with a 40% off-center broad-struck error, and after getting it professionally authenticated and graded by PCGS, she eventually sold it at auction for $2.7 million. Another remarkable discovery happened in 2021 when a college student in Florida was doing laundry at a laundromat and found a nickel in the change return slot of one of the machines. He pocketed it without really looking at it. But later that evening, when he was counting his change, he noticed the coin felt slightly different, weighed it out of curiosity on a kitchen scale, and realized it was significantly lighter than a normal nickel should be. This led him down a research rabbit hole that ended with the discovery that he had a 1988 P nickel struck on a dime planchet, and that coin was later sold privately for just over $5 million to a collector in California. These aren't isolated incidents. These are part of a pattern of discoveries that happen every single year as more people become educated about error coins and start actively examining the coins that pass through their hands. And with the 1988 P nickel, you have the advantage of AG on your side because these coins have been circulating for nearly 40 years, which means they've had time to disperse throughout the country, to end up in estate sales, storage units, inherited collections, and forgotten stashes where they're just waiting for someone knowledgeable to recognize their value. So what exactly should you be looking for when examining 1988 P nickels? First, and most obviously, confirm that the coin has a P mint mark. This will be located on the obverse side of the coin. That's the front with Jefferson's portrait, positioned to the right of the image near the date. Now here's an interesting historical note. The Philadelphia Mint didn't actually start putting mint marks on nickels until 1980. Before that year, Philadelphia coins had no mint mark. So any nickel from 1980 or later with no mint mark is not from Philadelphia and is likely either worn off or a different denomination entirely. But genuine 1988 Philadelphia nickels will have that small P clearly visible. Once you've confirmed it's a 1988 P, you'll want to examine the coin very carefully for signs of off-center striking. This means looking at whether the design appears complete and centered on the planchet, or if parts of the image are missing and blank planchet is visible. If you see any blank areas where the design should be, that's an off-center strike, and you should get it examined by a professional immediately regardless of how slight it appears. Next, check the rim of the coin. A normal nickel should have a complete raised rim running all the way around both the obverse and reverse sides. This rim protects the design from wear and is a crucial feature of properly struck coins. But if your 1988 P nickel is missing rim in certain areas, or if the design elements extend all the way to the edge of the coin, or if the coin appears slightly larger than other nickels when you compare them side by side, these are all indicators of a potential broad-struck error, and you need to pursue authentication. The third and perhaps most valuable test is to weigh the coin. This is absolutely essential because a transitional planchet or wrong planchet error will cause the coin to have an incorrect weight. A normal Jefferson nickel should weigh exactly 5.000 grams. So if your 1988 P weighs significantly less, around 2.268 grams like a dime would weigh, or if it weighs anything other than that standard 5.000 grams, you may have just discovered a genuine planchet error and you're potentially holding a fortune in your hands. Understanding the context and history of 1988 helps explain why these errors occurred and why they're so valuable today. The late 1980s was a period of massive coin production at all U.S. mint facilities as the economy was growing. Vending machines were proliferating, and demand for circulating coinage was at an all-time high. The mints were running their presses at maximum capacity, sometimes 24 hours a day, and under those high-pressure conditions, mistakes inevitably happen. Dies wear out faster. Quality control can slip, planchets can get mixed up, and equipment can malfunction in ways that create errors before anyone notices and corrects the problem. The Philadelphia Mint in 1988 was dealing with aging equipment that dated back to the 1960s and 70s, much of which was scheduled for replacement and upgrading in the early 1990s. And it's precisely this combination of old equipment under heavy use that creates the conditions for rare and valuable errors to occur. From a collector's perspective, the 1988 P. Jefferson nickel represents an absolutely ideal combination of factors that drive value in the numismatic market. Sufficient age to be considered a vintage coin, mass production numbers that ensure wide dispersal and discovery potential, documented high-value sales that prove strong market demand, and most importantly, the realistic possibility that exceptional examples are still out there in circulation waiting to be found. Unlike ancient coins or extremely old currency that requires massive capital investment and specialized knowledge to acquire, or unlike modern commemoratives and bullion coins that are intentionally produced for collectors and lack the thrill of discovery, Error coins like the 1988 P nickel offer everyday people a genuine chance to strike it rich simply by paying attention and knowing what to look for. The authentication and grading process for suspected 1988 P error nickels is similar to what I described earlier with the 2014 D. You absolutely must have the coin examined by professionals at PCGS, NGC, or Anax before you can confidently determine its value or attempt to sell it. These services will examine the coin under high magnification, perform metallurgical testing if necessary, compare it against their reference databases of known errors, and if it's genuine, they'll assign it a grade based on the condition and seal it in a tamper-proof holder with certification. This authentication is essential because it protects both you as the seller and any potential buyer from fraud or misrepresentation, and it dramatically increases the value and marketability of the coin. Once authenticated, if you're fortunate enough to have a genuine, significant error, you have several options for selling. You can consign it to a major auction house like Heritage, Stack's Bowers, or Goldberg's, where it will be presented to the international collector community and will likely fetch the highest possible price. You can sell it privately through specialized dealers who work with elite collectors. Or you can even hold on to it as an investment because the historical trend for rare error coins is consistently upward, with values increasing year after year as more collectors enter the market and the surviving population of any given error coin slowly decreases due to loss, damage, or permanent removal into institutional collections. I want to emphasize something really important here. Finding valuable error coins is not about luck alone. It's about knowledge and persistence. The people who discover these treasures are the ones who take the time to learn what to look for, who examine their coins carefully instead of just spending them mindlessly, who invest in basic tools like a digital scale and magnifying glass, and who stay informed about the market and what errors are currently in demand. You don't need to be an expert with decades of experience. You just need to be willing to look and willing to take that extra moment to check coins before you pass them along. The 1988 P. Jefferson nickel story is ultimately about possibility, about the fact that in our modern world where everything seems to be digitized and documented and tracked, there are still genuine treasures hiding in plain sight, still opportunities for ordinary people to discover extraordinary value, and still amazing stories waiting to be written by whoever happens to be lucky enough and informed enough to recognize what they're holding. So here's my challenge to you, starting right now. Find every 1988 P nickel you can possibly locate. Check your change jars, your old collections, your parents' or grandparents' coin stashes, coin rolls from the bank, anywhere these coins might be hiding, and examine each one carefully using the criteria I've outlined. Look for off-center strikes, check the rims for broad-struck characteristics, and absolutely weigh each coin to verify it's the correct weight, because if you find even one genuine error among hundreds or thousands of common examples, it could be worth more than you make in a decade of working. And here's the beautiful thing about both the 2014 D and the 1988 P nickels that we've covered in this video. They're both still actively circulating. They're both accessible to anyone regardless of budget or expertise, and they both represent life-changing potential if you're willing to educate yourself and take the time to search. These aren't ancient gold coins locked in museums. These aren't rare stamps that only billionaires can afford. These are nickels, 5-cent pieces that you handle regularly, that you can acquire by simply exchanging a few dollars at the bank for rolls of coins, and that could turn your entire financial situation around if you find the right one. I hope this video has opened your eyes to the incredible world of error coin collecting, shown you that fortune truly can hide in the most unexpected places, and motivated you to start examining your coins with new attention and enthusiasm, because every single nickel that passes through your hands could be the coin that changes everything, the discovery that generations of your family will talk about for years to come. Remember, knowledge is power in this hobby, so keep learning, keep searching, and keep those eyes open for errors that everyone else is overlooking, because the next great numismatic discovery could be made by you, and it could happen at any moment, in any pile of change, in any forgotten collection, starting right now today. Happy hunting, and may your next nickel be the one that makes you a millionaire.